Hey guys, Ranger here, and welcome back to another reaction interview. And this is to uh, the 10th episode of DuckTales, season 1, DuckTales 2017. And this is the Spear of Selene. And I'm not certain, but I think this might be another episode that talks more about Della, Hugh and Louie's mother, and Donald's sister. So I keep thinking I read somewhere that this is an episode that makes another mention about her and furthers that story, that arc. So let's dive in because I'm very curious. So starting the video, and there's a lot of different things going on with this episode. This was the whole arriving on this mythical island was part of Dewey and Webby's plan to try to figure out more about Della, and because the spear of Selene was written there. They had the picture that said the Spear of Selene. Interestingly enough, whenever they arrived on the island, they found out where it was. None of them wanted to be there. Scrooge and Donald did not want to be there. Scrooge and Donald didn't want to be there. They wanted to leave. And I figured that there was more to it than what we initially saw. And I can kind of understand why. There was multiple reasons, I think, why that Donald and Scrooge didn't want to be there. Number one was the fact of Zeus and Storkules. But I think there was also more to it. Whenever Storkules told Donald, he asked Donald about Della, and Donald told him that she wasn't. He just never said anything about it. And interestingly enough, Donald looks towards Huey and Louie, and Donald made the remark later on the beach that he's done adventuring, that someone always gets hurt. And I really don't believe that Della is dead. I really don't believe that, because there's more to that. Because I know she's not dead, because I did see over in my recommendations, like a few days ago, I've seen in the recommendations something about Della and Donald's reunion. And whenever I found it, it was just posted like that same day. And it was on, I think, the Disney XD YouTube channel. And it was the clip from that scene. I didn't watch it, but just the title of it, Donald and Della's reunion, and the thumbnail showed Della and Donald hugging, and it looked like Donald or Della was holding what looked like a Mickey Mouse watermelon or something. But so I know Della's not dead, and I didn't intentionally spoil myself with that. That was in the recommendation, and I saw that. So but I didn't watch the clip. So I know that Della's not dead, but I'm very curious about her and what transpired. And it's interesting that Donald didn't want to adventure because he said that someone always gets hurt. And I don't know if he means Della got hurt and that's why she left, or if she hurt them. I don't know. I don't know the truth to that, and I'm very curious about this developing arc. But it was honestly hilarious, this entire setup here, with Storkules and Zeus, the god of thunder, the god of Olympus, and here, Scrooge and him were like just kind of bitter. Scrooge comes onto the island, does all this random stuff, and he's able to just beat Zeus at everything, and suddenly everybody is like, oh, Scrooge is more awesome, let's leave this place. And so Zeus had a very petty rivalry with Scrooge for nothing. And Scrooge was very calm, very mellow about it, but the other interesting story was the fact that Dewey wanted to try to find out more about his mother. Webby also wanted to find out about it as well. And it's interesting because Webby believes going by the information, and that's what I believe too, is that Della did something bad, but I believe that there was a good reason for it. She may have did something bad, but I think there was a good reason for it. Dewey wanted to believe that his mom was good, and I said throughout this that Dewey's probably going to be disappointed. And then the moment that he steps in front of Webby, I knew that he wanted to, at that point, he just kind of wanted to stay in the belief, hold on to the belief that his mom was not a bad person. And Webby wanted to find out the truth, but Dewey didn't want to. And they ended up kind of starting to have a fight here. Webby finds out that Dewey, he's paranoid, kind of, that he's afraid to find out that his mother is a bad person. And he didn't want to believe that. He didn't want to find out that. And it's a very interesting and very mature thing that Webby decides to call it quits on this mystery. And she tells him that that's a mystery that they don't have to solve. And she's willing to walk away from it because she sees how much distress that it's bringing Dewey. Now we see that there is some disappointment in her. Like, she wanted to find out the truth and she was disappointed, but she was willing to walk away from it. And Dewey ended up grabbing her and yanking her back into that so they could explore and figure out the truth. And he makes the remark as they're walking that he has to find out the truth regardless of what it is. And honestly, this episode here is definitely a very heavy and very mature episode, especially with particularly with these scenes here transpiring with Webby and Dewey, because Dewey's afraid to find out the truth about his mother because he's not sure what the truth is, but he makes the resolve that he wants to learn the truth regardless of what it is. And honestly, I thought this woman here was actually Meg, like the duck version of Meg, but it's not. It's actually Selene. And she was actually really cool. I really like her as well. They find out that there is no spear of Selene. So that kind of puts them back at square one. They don't know what the spear of Selene is. And so apparently it was just another mystery. But we get to see this glimpse into her crystal ball that shows Selene, Della, Scrooge, and Storkules just kind of hanging out, and it shows like one of their past adventures here. And we also get to see Storkules here, Selene, Scrooge, and Della. And we also see Zeus in the background being upset, and we see Della just being happy. And Selene said that, and from this little glimpse, we see Della being definitely a hero. Like, she's an adventurer. She loves the adventure, and she's just having fun. She's having fun being there. She's having fun. And Selene said that Della loved her family more than anything. And so there was a lot more to Della. And it's interesting here. I love this bit, and it hit whenever Dewey hugged Selene. And I think partially there was two different things going on here. This, honestly, whenever he hugged Selene, he pulled Webby in as well. I think there was more to this particular thing than what we initially see with them in this embrace. And I think that I'm theorizing that, Selene definitely seems to have a very lovely, motherly nature about her. And so I think that right there partially may have prompted the hug. But I also think definitely because Selene gave Dewey that sphere, allowing him to see glimpses of his mother. And so he also embraced her as a thank you. But I also think that possibly because Della and Selene were so close, it may have felt like part of, like, by kind of hugging Selene, it felt like a part of his mother was there as well. And so it really was a very hardcore, a very emotional moment there. And I really loved how heavy that scene was there too. But as I made the mention earlier, Donald did not want to adventure because of the memory of Della. And there's more to that. I don't know what exactly is going on with this. I'm sure I'll learn in other episodes. Like, this is the 10th episode, I believe. Yeah, this is the 10th episode. So we have not seen really any major development with the mention of Della since the first episode in the series. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of this development, as well as the development with Lena and Magica as well. So there's two arcs going on: the reveal of Della, as well as the reveal of Lena, who she is, what her intentions are, and Magica. And I'm very curious about that. I'm very curious to see what transitions with that. But I honestly really loved the inclusion of Donald. Of Storkules and Zeus. This was honestly very fun. It was very fun to see these characters here. It was hilarious. And the interaction between Donald and Storkules was just, it was incredible. It was hilarious. I loved it. And the bitterness between Scrooge and Zeus is also comical. It, like, looking at Scrooge here, again, I kind of see the 10th Doctor and someone else, like an old rival or something, kind of facing off, having that immature rivalry kind of going on, it's comical. But like I said, this guy might be just a little bit obsessed with Donald. Just a little bit obsessed with Donald, which is hilarious. And like I said, I know Daisy would have loved this statue. Daisy would have loved this statue. Oh my gosh. Honestly, it's times like right now that I wish that the Disney fandom was as active in terms of fan art as the Brony fandom is. Because if that was the case, I would have loved to have seen someone make a fan animation of Daisy seeing the statue, or someone making a piece of fan art or a comic of Daisy seeing this statue. I would have loved to have seen that. I really would have. But this episode does actually show a lot of development with Donald as well. We're kind of used to Donald the way that he is before. It's not often we get to see Donald in a situation like this, where he's having to deal with something pertaining to family in this nature. And in this particular episode, he's facing the concept that, like, here he is. He lost his sister to some way, and here he is. He's got Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and there's that bad memory, maybe some bad blood, I don't know. And here he is back at a place that brings back those memories, and it's hurting. And so it's honestly very interesting to see a Disney character like Donald be put in a situation like this, because it's not often that something like that actually transpires. And I think it's very interesting to see that with Donald, and to see that particular aspect of his character being able to actually play out. And it's a very deep, very it's not a very lighthearted thing. It's a very heavy thing. But I think it's very great whenever we get those little glimpses like this, whenever we get these particular moments, because it shows more depth to these characters that we've grown up with, the characters that we know and love already. And it's kind of unusual to see Donald in a situation like this, but at the same time, I think it's very interesting because it does show more depth to Donald as a character, and it shows more depth to the Disney characters in general. One such example of that is a Goofy movie, seeing Goofy being both his normal, a comical character, but also being a father, and his interaction with Max, and seeing the lengths he's trying to go to keep Max from getting in trouble, and to try to keep Max on a good path, and to try to keep the good ties between him and his son together. And so it was a very emotional movie for that. And I gotta say, this particular episode is quite emotional for seeing that development with Donald. And so I really enjoyed it. But it was also interesting to see that development play out with Dewey and with Webby as well, because here, you know, both characters were wanting to follow this mystery and learn about Della. Webby, because of the mystery of it, because nobody really knows anything about her. It's like she said, it was the biggest mystery of the entire McDuck clan. The biggest McDuck, like the biggest mystery the regarding the McDuck name. Dewey wants to learn because he wants to find out more about his mom, because he doesn't really know anything about her, and no one says anything about her. So he wants to learn because of that. And here you have two characters that are wanting to find out about Della for two different reasons, but they're working together to try to accomplish their goal. And here, Dewey was faced with the probability that his mother, I mean, he wanted to believe throughout the entirety of the episode that his mother was a good person, but then closer to the end, he was faced with the reality that what if his mother is not a good person? And so it was shattering his image of her that he had in his mind. And he ended up finding out that, I mean, he ended up having a choice. And I do think it was mature of Webby that she was willing to walk away. Like, she wasn't putting her own interest in the mystery over over Dewey's feelings, over his sanity, over his overall emotion and mentality. She was willing to walk away. I mean, yeah, it hurt her to do so, because they could have obtained another clues, but yet she was still willing to walk away and leave it a mystery if it would make Dewey feel better. And I really have to admire that about her. I really have to admire that. But Dewey decided, he resolved to himself that he wanted to learn the truth, regardless of what it was. And they found out that there was more to it. The spear of Selene wasn't what they thought. There was no spear. And they also learned that they learned that Della loved her family. And so there's still the mystery. Like, Selene didn't even know what happened to her. So there's still that mystery. And Donald didn't disclose to Storkules what happened. Donald refused to say anything about it. All he said was, someone always gets hurt. He didn't say that Della was actually, he didn't say whether she was alive or dead. And so I'm wondering if Donald actually knows if Della is alive or dead, or maybe it was some sort of fabrication, or maybe some sort of ruse. Maybe Scrooge knows the truth, but he's not telling Donald. Or maybe Donald knows as well, and he's not comfortable with it, because it's uneasy for him to talk about. And so clearly it's uneasy for him to talk about. And he made the remark, someone always gets hurt. I don't know if he's referring to Della, or if he's referring to him and Scrooge. I don't know. Or maybe him, Scrooge, and the boys. I don't know. But there was a lot of development in this episode that furthers what happened to to Della, and I'm very curious about what's going to happen later. So, I really enjoyed this episode. It really furthers that story, and I'm very curious. This was a pretty heavy episode, and I really enjoyed it for that. It was also fun to see a lot of the Greek mythology here, and I do love Greek mythology, so it was very interesting to see this play out. I really enjoyed it. But that was my thoughts regarding this episode, and like I said, I'm curious about what's going to develop later on. But I am very curious to see what will transpire with the rest of what's going to happen later on. But thanks again to everybody that worked on this episode. Thank you guys so much. Looking forward to seeing what happens in the rest of the episodes as well. So thank you all so much, and thank you guys again for joining me as well. Hope you guys enjoy. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video that I do. Take care.